sis and tell. A whole lot of talk, about a whole lot of nothing. Amanda does stand up, Alison's on TV, and when they hop on the phone, it's the place you wanna be. Sis and tell.
Hey, Allie.
Hey, man, how are ya?
Good.
Well, I'm even better. You know why? Because, I mean, not that it's a competition, although it
Is
is.
it because of some awesome new product you're using? Tell me all about it.
It's not a new product. It's an old product. It actually is a very common household item that anybody probably has in their pantry, uses it for baking, but I have an all-new hack for it. Are you ready?
Is it like the baking soda?
Oh my gosh, yes. How'd you know that?
Because I don't know, because baking soda has so many
Baking soda is
uses.
amazing. Is amazing. Okay.
What are you
One of my
doing?
pet peeves, besides somebody who leaves their blinker on and clearly is not turning, one of my other pet peeves is getting deodorant stains on my dark t-shirts, dresses, and more importantly, tank tops where you can see them.
But can't you just rub the material together?
Okay, so this is what people say all the time, right? Rub the material together, it'll come out. Well, when I try that, especially because if you see the tank I'm wearing now, which I'll describe as a ribbed cotton black tank, it's one of my favorite. Once I rub, it gets whiter and wider, like it spreads,
Right,
and
yeah.
it just sort of maybe turns a dull gray. The other hack I once was taught was get pantyhose. Well, who has pantyhose anymore? But if you get plain pantyhose and you rub it on that, but what happens is it sort of rubs it off, but where does it go? Either on the pantyhose or on your counter, and then I wipe it back up with the shirt, and there's a stain that's not on the underpit. So this morning, I go to put on the shirt. What do I see? Of course, the deodorant, those pesky deodorant stains. And of course, I'm like, I'm sick of this. There's got to be an easier hack. And there's a bunch of them. One said lemon juice and leave it in the sun. Who has time for that? This
I feel like it
one,
would dye it. I feel
that's
like
what I thought too. I
yeah.
didn't think that was for black. This one, you literally make a paste of baking soda and water, easy peasy. You take an old toothbrush or a new toothbrush if that's all you have, because I figure if you're going to use baking soda, that also works as a toothpaste, by the way.
Yeah.
So you
Teeth
take the
whitener.
paste or a teeth whitener. You take the paste with a toothbrush, you scrub it on the stain with the toothbrush, rinse it out, voila. And sometimes you can't tell, like you run it underwater and you feel like the stain's gone, and then once
And
you
then it
dry the
appears,
shirt,
yeah.
it appears again. I'm holding it up. I'm doing the armpit test for you. What do you think?
Looks good.
I mean, pretty impressive, right?
Also,
And now
maybe
I
you're
want to go
putting
do all of my shirts.
Okay, so maybe also you're putting on too much deodorant.
No, I think it's just I don't
like-
wash these shirts a ton. I mean, in the summer, probably more.
Like
but
you wear them multiple times before you wash them?
Correct. So that's why I think it has a deodorant buildup.
Mm-hmm.
I also have the deodorant that supposedly doesn't stain.
And it does.
Clearly they lie on the packaging.
I think it mixes with your body chemistry in a certain way, and that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, whatever the case, that's my PSA for the day. Baking soda, paste, toothbrush, get the stains out. You're welcome, folks.
I'd like to know if our kids even know what pantyhose are. I feel really
know.
distracted by that because I don't know if they would. I don't know if they would know that.
Yeah.
Right? Like it sounds like the strangest thing. Pantyhose.
Pantyhose. Yeah.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
would probably think it's something like, oh, I heard that in a rap song.
I mean, do you remember going into like the
Pantyhose.
drugstore?
That's what
I don't know
it
if that-
sounds like.
It totally
It
does.
sounds dirty.
Right. If pantyhose were popular, I guess they're still around today, but if they had to name them today,
Right.
there's no way they could name them pantyhose.
No.
Just because of the way it sounds.
It sounds like
You're
someone
right.
it's like sounds like some like artist has like an entourage of like it's like his
Of
entourage
scantily clad
of
women
scantily
in their
clad women,
underwear.
and he
Uh-huh.
calls them his pantyhose.
Yo, no one knows my pantyhose. That's how it goes. Okay, I'm not a
Oh,
good
that's
rapper. Levi's
terrible
gonna make fun of
rapping.
me. It
He
is.
sure
It is.
is.
But do you remember like going into a drugstore like that you could never find a pair of pantyhose that didn't run the first 10 minutes, 20 minutes you wore them, and then you'd have to run into a drugstore and get a pair that was close enough to whatever you were wearing,
Or
and
do you
they
have
came
clear
in the
nail
eggs
polish? Or you
or
have
clear
clear
nail
nail polish
polish.
so you would stop the run.
Oh, clear nail polish to stop the run. It was brilliant.
Stop
See?
the run.
I wonder how those hacks, like without Google, I find the baking soda hack this morning, but without Google, all of those hacks that we learned in childhood
Word
and
of
teenage years,
mouth.
total word of mouth,
Total
that
word
those
of
got around.
mouth.
Like, think about how many people around the country, nay, around the world even, like just nodded their head and said, yeah, I put clear nail polish on my pantyhose when they ran. How did they know? Word of mouth.
So I think about this a lot with the whole concept of there had to be a first person to do this, right? So there had to be the first person who got the run in their pantyhose, right? And at some point they were expensive. Then
Right.
but and they were like, what can I do so I can continue wearing these and keep this from getting bigger? And they thought about that clear nail polish hack. They did. I think about other things like there had to be the first person who sat on a Xerox machine and Xeroxed their
Their
butt.
butt cheeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to put my butt on this copying machine and make copies of it. And then other people started doing it. Maybe it happened at the same time, but it doesn't happen anymore. People don't do that. There is now the last person who has Xeroxed their butt. I don't think people do that anymore. They probably get fired and canceled from their work environment.
But I think even when we catalog or we're able to note the first, like the Thomas Edisons, Albert Einsteins, the Rosa Parks of the world, when you really look back at history, you realize they're not actually the first, right? They're the first that we know of in
That's
some
true.
cases, right? Like
Right.
Rosa Parks was not the first to refuse to give up her seat on the bus, but she became the face of the
She
civil
was an
rights movement because
icon.
she was a designated, intentional person who fit what the mission of the movement stood for. So, in some of these cases, right, like I think, the butt cheek person on the Xerox copy, not to compare them to Rosa Parks, but I think somebody could just
I
claim
think you
to
just
be the
did.
first. They don't necessarily have to be the
That's
first.
right. Yeah.
I think you just did. And remember
Uh,
Xerox? Xerox. Like we used to say Xerox things. Xerox was like the same as Q-tip, It's a
right.
brand name. It's not now people, if they even do it, say photocopy,
Yeah.
They don't say Xerox, but I
Aaron
I say
Aaron was
Xerox.
trying to explain that whole thing to the kids, and he used Kleenex as an example. And he's like, you know how we all say Kleenex instead of tissue? And the response was, no. We don't know that. We call it tissue, right? Like
Right.
they don't do that anymore.
That's because they were not forced to watch only 4 channels of television and, to suffer through all of the commercials every day without having the ability to fast forward.
And now Ruby's like, why are you fast forwarding through commercials or muting it? I like commercials. Because she exactly was not forced to.
Yeah.
Although that being said, I feel like both me and you, we have an affinity for infomercials, which feels
Yes. Yeah.
entirely different,
Set it and forget it. I
right?
use that phrase
But
all the
like
time. Ronco,
commercials,
Ronco. Mhm.
30-second commercial, awful. 30-minute
Right.
commercial, terrific.
Yes. Okay, that's the other thing, and this I thought it was only me, but I read an article about this the other day about binge watching and how it's changed the way we have an appetite for long form movies. Well, I'll just call them movies because most of them are long form.
Yeah.
And that, people, I always say I can binge watch, 15 episodes of a half hour show. But if I have to commit to a 2 hour or 2.5 hour movie, like on an afternoon, I'm like,
Mhm.
too long. And I don't know what the psyche is. It has totally changed. And when I do commit to a movie, I enjoy it. But there is something about taking something in pieces. I think there's also about like the extended storyline that ultimately has closure is very satisfying. I
Mhm.
know we've said this before, unlike the soap operas that we all watched growing up and still have no closure. They're still they're still, suffering through the same, idiotic tragedies and relationship dramas that they were back in 1978. But
Yes.
I don't know where I was going with that, but all right.
So something happened a couple weeks ago, and it's that I couldn't use my credit card, right? And we pretty much have one credit card and that we use. And the other one we try not to use, but I couldn't use it on this website. I was trying to buy tickets to Mr. Olympia for Oscar and Murray. I'm taking them to see Mr. Olympia in November, and the website just wouldn't let me use it. And so I'm like,
Sorry, just back up. Mr. Olympia, remind me, is that like the Arnold Schwarzenegger days of like bodybuilding?
yep, it is.
Okay.
And actually, the guy who created it not only trained Arnold, but he's also Jewish.
Oh,
He's
there
Jewish.
you
The
go.
guy who created Gold's Gym, also Jewish, because of course I'm like, mommy, it's in my DNA to go find how anything's related back to Judaism or someone being Jewish. And anyways, we made our mark in the
Yep.
weightlifting industry as well. So, but yeah, so it's bodybuilding actually. It's bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding.
So I'm like, I said to Aaron, I go, I bet there is like visas marking this as fraud, right? Because sometimes if you make random purchases, they're like
Especially
danger,
online.
danger,
Right.
especially and in Florida.
Right.
It's Florida, and the ticketing website was this random ticketing website. It wasn't like something that you've heard of. So I called them, and they they had a fraud alert on it, and I had to, first of all, they sent me to the fraud department, and all of a sudden, and the guy asked me for all this information. I give it to him. He asked me what was our last payment that we made. I said, I don't have that information, but my husband does. And then he asked for Aaron's information, and he called him, and Aaron gave him all this information, and he had me on the phone too, and then he wouldn't talk to us anymore. He's like, I can't, we're sending out a letter. It's going to come with a code, and then you're going to have to call us back with that code. And I was like,
A letter, not an email. So you have to
a
wait for
letter,
the mail to get to
10
you.
days.
Oh my gosh.
So I said, so does my credit card not work now? And he kept on repeating the same thing. We're sending you a letter. There's a code in it. You have to call us with the code. I'm like, okay. So I go, so does that mean we just can't use it on the website that is we're having issues with? Or what does this mean exactly? He said, he kept on saying it over and over again, and he wouldn't talk to me. And it was
Did he
the most,
think you were the thief?
I
That maybe
don't know, but I literally gave him every information, like everything about me, my social security,
Right.
like everything. So, except for that one thing, which was what was the last payment we made? Because I was like, I don't know. I don't have that information. Aaron does, right? And then he called Aaron. I just, anyways, it was so bizarre. It almost sounded like we were talking to a robot. And I even
Yeah.
said, "Are you a human?"
Blink twice if you need
Please.
help.
Because he was so unhelpful, and like he wouldn't go off his script. So eventually, we got this code. I called them again, and they're like, "Okay, you should be able to use your card." It didn't work. Okay, and then I called them up, and they tried everything for it to work on this website, and it wouldn't work. And she's like, you know what? It's sometimes the website won't work with Visa Citibank, and you may just need to use a different credit card." And so, and then the next morning, Aaron gets a fraud alert. Oh no, Aaron gets just an alert of charges, and he says, "Did you spend $1,500 on this website called Immunotech?" And I'm like, "No." So they wouldn't approve this charge for Mr. Olympia tickets with me on the phone, being like, "This is me," but they let this $1,500 fraud go through on this website. Okay, and there are two charges. And first of all, I went to Immunotech. We canceled the card. First of all, we
I was
canceled
going to
it.
say, you need a new credit card.
So we
This
need a
sounds
new credit card.
bogus.
We got a new card, right? But so I went to Immunotech to see what it was because I was curious, and it looks like people with maybe chronic illnesses who it's like a immuno technology,
Right.
like pills,
Immunosuppressed or
right, or
something. Yeah.
whatever, or some like people who get on like regimented on who like supplements and stuff like that. So I messaged them and I'm like, hey, someone took my card. They made some charges. And before you sent out $1,500 worth of your products, I just wanted you to know and give you an opportunity to cancel it. Right. Because the credit card company canceled it on their end. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean they don't eat that. Right.
Right.
Like in certain, I think they sometimes just eat it's like it's like you pay almost insurance that they're going to cover you if there's fraud, but
That's very nice of you to call the company too, or to
so
contact the
yeah,
company.
I contacted them. They asked for all this information. I gave it to them. I don't know what they did with that, but a week later,
You
I
did
get
not get a box.
I get a box in the mail, and there's 2 charges, right? So I get a box in the mail. So, and it has Immunotech all over it. There's like a
No.
big sticker all over it that says Immunotech. So I messaged them and I said, hey, I got a package from you. What do you want me to do with it? No response. I messaged them again. I said, do you want me to return this to you? No response. So then I'm like, this is fair game. I'm going to open this. I just want to see what's inside. So
Hold on. How do they have your address? Like,
so
even if you steal somebody's credit card,
This
you
is a
don't
good-
have their home address.
this is a good question. So it had this other person's name on it, Carolyn Pearson. Okay. But it was sent to my address. I looked it up, right? Does this happen? It happens to a lot of people where their information, their credit card, and by the way, my physical card was not stolen. It was the numbers.
Right.
So she stole the numbers. Carolyn, who may or may not be Carolyn, stole these numbers.
And who may or may not be immunosuppressed.
Right. And I don't think she is. I'll tell you why in a second.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So she stole my numbers. Sometimes these companies make you use the address that is associated with the credit card, and sometimes people who steal your numbers will just go ahead and send you something just to see if you're paying attention and if they can get away with more charges, right?
But again,
Using your
how did
number.
she get your address?
It must have been tied. However she got my number, it must have come with my address.
Wow.
Or she has my information, right? Because you have to enter billing zip code in order for a credit card to work. So
sometimes.
You're right, sometimes. And sometimes if you put in a different zip code, would it work?
Who knows, right?
Who knows?
Right.
I don't know because I don't do that. So anyways, I get this package and I'm like, I'm opening this up.
Wait, and how big is it? Big, small,
It is
a bread box, a shoe box?
It is this is how big it is. It is like the size of
so
like
a shirt box.
Like a shirt, like a FedEx, like the FedEx box, right? The UPS, the USPS,
right?
Like priority box. It's probably, I mean, it's definitely bigger than 8 by 10, 9 by 13.
No, it's like a large shirt box.
Yeah, it's the size of a brownie pan.
There you go. That's an analogy I can live with.
It's big enough to fit this portfolio in, because that's what was in it, this portfolio. So I open it up and I realize it's an MLM, and this was her starter package, and the $1,500 worth of products she brought was probably all the products she had bought to then sell. So she was being entrepreneurial. She was trying to start a business, Carolyn. And Carolyn was trying to start a business.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
So here's the thing. And obviously, if she's stealing my information, this other information could be fake. But I have her email address and I have her phone number on here.
Come
right?
on.
So I'm like,
this story's getting so good. I had no idea it was going to take a turn this way.
So should we, I mean, email, she can I think email is too slow paced. We can call her. I can *67 my phone number so it comes up as restricted.
Wait, you're going to call her right now?
I can. I didn't know if you'd feel comfortable
very nervous
with that.
Well, my heart's palpitating. That makes me say.
But I mean, look, I have to have a cover. I'm not going to be like, this is Amanda and you stole my credit card. I'm going to be like, hi, this is Judy from Immunotech. And we just wanted to make sure you got our welcome package and welcome you to the team. Welcome you to the Immunotech family. and make sure
Oh
you got
my
everything okay. See if you
gosh.
had any questions.
But did you get the product too, or just the
The
portfolio?
product didn't come. I think the day she ordered the product is the same day that that I contacted them and said, "Hey, you need to stop this shipment." Or she may have been able to get that shipment sent to her home, right?
Right.
So she may have that and she's just missing her welcome package. So I don't know, because I'm also nervous about calling her. But I can also
I don't.
I can give
That
it, who's
makes me
good?
very
We
nervous.
could use Levi. He would be good.
Because first of all, this is not just a bored, like stay-at-home mom who decided she's going to get in some multi-level marketing scheme and make a few bucks. Somehow she had access
Yeah,
to private information.
that's right.
She stole it. She committed a crime, used your information, not just your credit card, but had a lot of data in order to access your credit card and
Right.
your name and your mailing address slash
Mhm.
billing address. And all of that makes me very uncomfortable. And you don't know, people can be very, very spiteful. And
You're right.
revenge is a bitter pill that people love to take.
Especially if she has my information
Yeah.
already.
Yeah. The last thing you need is her to figure out, oh, that was actually Amanda, and now I'm going to really make her life a living hell.
Well, we can talk about some of the I just
But what do
started
they sell? In other news,
in other news.
Amanda, I see a great future for you.
They have a complete line of products to strengthen your immunity. And they talk about, let's see, the talking points: the most successful entrepreneurs and artists employ leverage, some even decades after they die.
Oy
They have a whole
vey.
list of people to inspire you, including Oprah and Elvis.
Let me ask you this. So, is there anything in there about perimenopause or menopause? Hashtag asking for a
Oh,
friend?
oh, I am sure. I'm sure there's so many talking. How many talking points can you have if you they're so, oh my lord. This is just, I'm not going to sell this product for her. You're
Oh
right. I
my
think it is
gosh.
dangerous
Yeah.
reaching out, but she wouldn't know. I guess she would know it's me. I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe I'm really
This is
dying.
different than your ability and penchant for scamming scammers.
Right.
This is a,
Because it's
uh,
not as
I don't know how
anonymous.
dangerous, but she's a criminal. I wouldn't go down that. I
But
think
is
you,
she? Because she's trying to start a business. I'm just
but she's an
saying.
entrepreneurial criminal. And here's my other point, which I
Yeah.
often say, if these people who are putting this much effort into stealing your information and ordering this stuff and doing all this stuff, the criminal minds in this world, if they put their minds and energy to good, we could have like solved so many things on this planet if they would just use it for good, because they're oftentimes smart people who are just misdirected, or
Right.
maybe they're dumb people who are misdirected, but they've got to have some level of intelligence to get away with some of the stuff they're doing.
Maybe she's trying to get away from doing credit card fraud, and this was her last ditch effort. She's like,
And you foiled it. You
she's
foiled
like,
it.
I don't want to steal people's credit cards anymore. I just want to start my own business and be an independent woman. So my last fraud is going to be starting an MLM. And that's
And this
where
Amanda Marks, I Googled her and she's a stand-up comedian and she'll find it hilarious.
she'll make a podcast about this.
She'll put it in her podcast. She'll use it in her act. So look, I'm giving back.
Right.
So wait, did you Google her?
I tried looking her up on Facebook. And
Okay.
the number, and it could be like a Google Voice number, right? But the number's based in Ohio, and that's all the information I have. She has a really
Wow.
pretty generic name, Carolyn Pearson.
Yeah.
Okay. Other people, if someone else wants to call her, I will give you her number. Just let me know. But
If someone else wants to pretend that
but you
they're
have
this immuno
yeah,
company.
but you have
Mhm.
to record it and get back to me. Just
Yeah.
let us know. We'll put it on the podcast.
I think there are people who would take that challenge.
Oh, I'm
People who
sure.
would love that.
Probably our children.
It's not me. It makes me very No, don't let your children do it.
No, I'm
This
not.
is
I
only
don't.
for people aged we're going to say 25 and older. So
Okay.
it precludes any of our children.
You must be able to rent a car.
Actually, you can rent a car when you're under 25 now. So
Oh,
COVID changed that. Yep. Arthur just rented a car, 23.
what did they lowered it to 23?
They might have even lowered it to 18 in some places.
Wait till
It depends on the state. It depends on the rental service.
wait till he experiences a situation where you have a reservation for a car rental, but they have no car for you.
That's
That
the
is the
famous
worst.
Seinfeld.
Yeah, it is.
Anyone can take a reservation. The trick is to hold the reservation.
So the issue is, when it comes down to it, is that if people do not return their cars when they're supposed to, if they end up extending their rental period, then they don't have the cars in their inventory to rent out
Yep.
to you. So that's what it comes down to. And people should be aware of that, especially when you're traveling during a really busy time. So Aaron and I, we went.
I was like, I feel like this is a setup for
There
a
is.
personal adventure.
There is,
Okay.
because this has happened. If you've lived long enough and rented cars long enough in your lifetime, this will have happened to you. And
Yeah.
the first time it happens, it's pretty jarring. And I have to say, we ended up with the car, but we ended up with a car that was supposed to come with something that we didn't get that we really needed for our entire trip, and that was GPS. So we went to
Oh, this is a long time ago.
This was a long time ago because we didn't have GPS on our phones. Like, you had to have a separate piece of technology, a separate piece of equipment just for GPS. There was no app. I don't even know if we had smartphones. So we probably didn't. I think there were no smartphones. So we went to Italy. He graduated from law school. We went to Italy. Mom and dad were watching Murray. He was like a year and a half old. He was a baby. And we were supposed to have GPS. That's how we were going to get around. We were going to have this like independent trip. We didn't want to like do anything organized. We wanted to like do things on our own with GPS. We got there. None of the cars had GPS. And none of the cars, we couldn't even exchange a car later for GPS. They never got them. And then we moved locations. But what they did give us was a map.
I was going to say, did they have a map? Because that's the old school.
Yeah, they had a map, and then they drew on that map where we needed to go with a Sharpie. And right. And I'm like, this is not helpful. Okay.
They need a highlighter, not a Sharpie.
Exactly. I don't know what they were thinking. Like, then it blacked out all of like
right. Then you can't even see what road you're on.
I had no idea.
Silly rabbits.
And of course it was a manual car, which Aaron knows how to drive stick shift, but we couldn't figure out how to get it in reverse. Like, evidently you don't just put it in reverse like American stick shift cars. Like, you have to like lift up the stick and then and to move it. And we didn't know that. So we were there for like 10 minutes just trying to figure it out. I burst into tears and I was like, let's just go home. It was so, because then I had the pressure of the entire time having to be the navigator, because Aaron, love him to death, he is not good with directions. He's just not. He thinks, we should go left, we should really go right. It's always the opposite. He thinks maps and signs are lying to us. And he's like, no.
It's a conspiracy.
He does. He thinks like GPS is like, turn left in 50 feet. He's like, that doesn't seem right. I'm like, that's great that it doesn't seem right to you, but it is right because it's GPS. And unless it's telling you to drive into the lake, like, you pretty much listen to GPS.
Yeah. And by the way, when we first had GPS in our cars, in the car, right, not in the phone, I was in Atlanta. We must have been at a bar or bar mitzvah or something. And I'm driving with Daddy. I'll never forget this. And Atlanta can be very confusing. And we're on Peachtree Road and we're trying to turn into the hotel, which is also not intuitive. It's like a weird way to get into whatever hotel. And GPS is like, turn left. And Daddy's talking to her as if it's a person. He's like, turn left. Why would I turn left? Turn left in 400 feet. Why would I turn left? That's not where the hotel is. Turn left in 200 feet. I'm not turning left. I'm like, Daddy, I'm pretty sure they want you to turn left. He goes, who is she? She doesn't know anything. I go, she's GPS. He goes, well, she doesn't know. I go, she has a view from the sky. She knows everything.
She's omniscient.
I go, she sees the whole world. For all you know, she's God. And now you're messing with God.
Don't mess
he
with
goes,
God.
well, I don't believe her. And what happened? He didn't turn left. We go around and 10 seconds later, he goes, I should have turned left.
Yeah.
I was like, yep.
And the thing about Atlanta, you miss that turn, then it takes you another 20 minutes to get back to where you need to be.
Yep. Sorry. They have to learn. They have to learn the hard way.
So good news. I texted Ruby. I guess the bad news is that she's texting me from school, but but she does know what pantyhose are. I'm not sure the boys
thank
would.
goodness.
She goes, I said, do you know what pantyhose are? She goes, I think so. Yeah, they're like tights, right? Yeah, they're like tights.
Okay.
All right. Here's to my pantyhose and my panty bros.
Amen, sister.
Thanks for listening to the latest Sis and Tell podcast. Don't forget to share us with your friends. Share us with your panty foes and share us with your family.
As always, this has been Amanda and Allison with a whole lot of talk about a whole lot of nothing. We'll catch you next time.